Hello, welcome back to the Foundation series, and in this video we're going to introduce the three streams. We've had the four questions, here come the three streams in the simplest form that we can manage, and then as we move forward we will add more detail and make even more sense of this illustration. But the three streams is really important if you're going to really be a part of the conversation at Cor Deo. Alright, here we go. So the three streams is an illustration, sort of a metaphor, if you like, that we use. I want you to imagine a mountain range, and that mountain range is there in the distance, but coming towards us is a river. The river flows down through the past 2,000 years of church history. This river represents Christianity. Okay, so everything that calls itself Christian in some way is sort of connected is part of this river. And what we have at the source of the river, I'm just going to write in here the word God in blue ink, and the color is going to be important. The God who is the God of the Bible, the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, the Trinity, that God is the source of the church, the source of the water that is flowing down through church history towards us. And in an ideal world, if everything was as it should be, then we would say that everything that calls itself Christian is perfectly Christian, and there's nothing wrong at all. And so we would be swimming around, I suppose we're kind of down here somewhere, we would be swimming around in pure blue, perfect, life-giving, refreshing water, the water that flows from the nature of this God. That's what we'd like to think is true, that everything that calls itself Christian is perfectly healthy and helpful. However, that's not quite the situation. You see, there's also another stream that has flowed into this river. It came in fairly early on, and it comes from a different source. And so I'm going to write the source up like this in red ink. This is God, but this is a different God. This is the God we're going to call the red ink God, and we're going to come back and define how that God differs from the true God. We're going to come back and say, okay, who is this red ink God? What is this understanding of God that has flowed down through church history? Because what we have then is this red ink that flows into the river, and I'll just try to, there we go, and just add a little bit more. And that ink, that red ink has, as you can tell, it's kind of dominated. Let me just circle this section here. For several hundred years it was majorly influential, and now in recent decades it's making a resurgence. What is this red ink? Well, it comes from a different understanding of God. When you get God wrong, you get problems in the river. And so we're going to have to come back and say, okay, so who is this red ink God, or how did we come up with him? Because there is only one true God, of course. But humans have this incredible ability to kind of project or manufacture alternative gods whose shape, whose character, whose characteristics then flow into Christianity and mark what we have in the river. So we've actually got a problem now. We've got red ink blending in with blue ink. But there's a third stream. And this third stream's source is the black ink God. This is the terminology we use. You'll never find black ink, red ink, blue ink language meaning this anywhere else. This is particularly Cor Deo language. But now we've got another version of God, another set of characteristics, qualities, if you like. And the characteristics of the black ink God have, of course, flowed down and come into the river. You'll notice that they've kind of dominated. For the more recent part of history, the church has been much more black ink influenced than it has been red ink influenced. Just looking at that diagram, even without any more explanation, even without getting into, okay, so here's the black ink God, here's the red ink God, but who is the true blue ink God? Without getting into the distinctions between the gods, just look at the river and you'll see that there's some deliberate elements here. The blue ink is never really the dominant color. It's there all the way through. There's always been a remnant of loving God, loving Jesus, loving the Bible kind of Christianity. Healthy, good, life-giving Christianity. But for a season, the red ink was really overwhelming it. And then for a season, the black ink has been really overwhelming it. And so here we are down in the kind of current climate, and there's a blend. There's red, there's black, there's blue. Now, please notice I've not referred to denominations at any point in this definition. And the reason for that is because within Protestant Christianity, that even more narrowly within evangelical Christianity, you're always going to find a blend. Churches will have elements of blue blended with black, or blue blended with red, sometimes all three blended together. And what we want to do with the three streams is not to kind of label one church good and another church bad. That's not the goal at all. Our goal is to kind of help us to recognize what is the blue ink. Because if we can become discerning and start to recognize what the blue ink is, then we can access that, we can pursue that, we can not only gain it for ourselves, but hopefully share it with others and become promoters of blue ink Christianity. There's a Cor Deo phrase for you. But let me just add one more detail to this diagram. The big thing we really need to do is get into the most important question, which is the God question. Which God is God? Is it the blue ink God, or the black ink God, or the red ink God? Where do these different concepts of God come from? That's something that we're going to get into next time when we look at the God question. But let me just give you one more little element to this diagram, because this diagram is going to become quite familiar for us. And that is, just get rid of the markings there, that there are a couple of other, I suppose we could call them parallel rivers, just coming out from these inlets. The sources of the red and the black that have come into Christianity have also given birth to complete religions. So the red ink can flow into the river and become part of Christianity blended with blue, or it can also go down this other line over here and just be absolutely pure red. This is another major world religion coming from the same view of God, but expressed without any Christian kind of labeling or packaging, just pure red ink. We'll come back and identify that once we talk about which God is God and how these different systems work. And of course, over on the left there, we've got the black ink. And the black ink can be a religion in itself. That extra parallel river is really a pure reflection of the black ink version of God, or the black ink can come down into the river of Christianity. So we haven't defined the gods, and therefore we haven't got into the explanations of what it means to be human, or what it means to sin, or how salvation works, or anything like that. All we've said is, here is church history. It begins in pure, perfect form with the teachings of Jesus, pure blue. And all the way through church history, there has always been a remnant. There's always been something that is really kind of pure, life-giving, healthy. But there's also been, from the very earliest days, this overpowering red ink, and then a little bit later, an overpowering black ink. And our challenge today is not really to explain the history, although we want to do that in Cor Deo. Our challenge in life today is to find the blue and to enjoy the blue and to promote the blue, because that is where the health is. And so when we talk about three streams, this is what we're talking about. This blending of these three different colors, all flowing from three different views of God. And really, I hope that the more we say, the more you'll agree that this is the God we want, the God of the Bible, the Trinity, and therefore this is the color that we want to be swimming in. We want to be finding and enjoying the blue ink as much as we possibly can. Thanks for watching, and in the next 4 or 5 videos we're going to go through those 4 big questions, and we're going to think about them one at a time in light of these 3 streams. And I'm sure that, or I hope that will be helpful for you. Thanks for joining, thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.